So here's a thought that might, mess with your morning routine a little bit, but I think it's important.
Uh,
Most people who abandon a grand mission, a calling, a dream, whatever, they don't do it with some big dramatic exit.
no, there's no slamming of the door. Not usually.
Exactly. The research we're diving into today says they abandon it quietly. They slowly start choosing what feels safe.
And that's the terrifying part, isn't it? The
Yeah.
silence of that choice. It's not a cliff you fall off. It's more like a slow, gentle drift into the shallows.
And you look up 5 years later and have no idea how you got so far off course.
Yep.
And that drift, that's the central tension of today's deep dive.
Yeah.
This conflict between two huge forces, what we're calling cultural comfort and missional urgency.
This is a heavy one. And we're working with a really fascinating text today. It's titled Cultural Comfort versus Missional Urgency. Now, I should say for you listening, this analysis is rooted in a very specific context.
The Filipino church.
The Filipino church, yes.
Which I can imagine some people hearing that and thinking, okay, well, I'm not in Manila. I'm in Manchester, Minnesota. So
Mm.
what's in this for me?
And to be honest, that would be a huge mistake. Because while the specific cultural flavors are Filipino, the underlying dilemma, it's universal.
It's just human nature.
It's the struggle between our very real need for stability and that call to something bigger.
So the mission for this deep dive is to try and answer a question that, frankly, makes me a little uncomfortable. When does faithfulness, staying put, being consistent, things we see as virtues, when does that actually become a ceiling that just limits your impact?
Right. When does holding the fort turn into hiding in the bunker? I think the aha moment from this whole text, if you want the headline up front, is this. Comfort isn't the enemy.
Okay.
Unexamined comfort is.
Let's get into the anatomy of that, because when I think disobedience or, failing a mission, I picture active rebellion.
Like Jonah.
Yeah, Jonah literally getting on a boat and sailing in the opposite direction. You picture someone actively saying no.
But the source argues that for most of us, the failure doesn't look like rebellion at all. It looks like wisdom. It looks like prudence.
That's tricky because prudence is a good thing, right? We're supposed to be wise.
We are. But the text describes this specific thing. It calls the theology of delay.
The theology of delay.
And it's the perfect disguise, is how we rationalize staying put, using all this responsible-sounding language to basically mask our fear.
Okay, give me a concrete example. What does that sound like in the real world?
It sounds like I'm not saying no to the mission, I'm just saying yet. It's the person who says, I just need to get my career stable first so I can support the mission financially instead of going myself.
Or I have to wait until my kids are through college.
Until the mortgage is paid off.
And those things they sound incredibly reasonable. My friends would pat me on the back for saying that.
That's the trap. They are reasonable. And that's why it's so hard to spot. The source argues that postponed obedience, stretched over a long enough timeline, just becomes disobedience. But it's dressed up as maturity, so we don't feel any guilt. We start to confuse faithfulness with familiarity.
That distinction feels crucial. Faithfulness versus familiarity.
Think about it. We think we're being faithful because we're protecting our stability, honoring our family's expectations. But the text asks, are you being faithful? Or are you just protecting what's familiar?
Are you treating stability like the end goal?
Instead of the foundation. Exactly. Stability is supposed to be the floor you build on, not the ceiling you hide under.
This gets even more layered when we bring in the specific cultural stuff from the source. The text points to these Filipino values that are, objectively beautiful things.
Absolutely.
But it shows how they can become double-edged swords.
And this is where you, listening, need to sort of translate this into your own culture. Every culture has a version of this. The text talks about a concept called pakikisama.
Pakikisama. Okay. For those of us who don't have that background, break that down.
Loosely, it's about smooth interpersonal relationships. The art of getting along, fostering unity, keeping the group harmony. It creates these incredibly warm, tight-knit communities.
That sounds completely positive. Who doesn't want more unity?
We could all use more of it. But here's the shadow side, according to the source. When pakikisama becomes the highest value in a group, it can silence what the text calls prophetic risk.
Prophetic risk.
The willingness to say the hard thing, to rock the boat. If your primary goal is to keep everyone happy and comfortable, you will absolutely avoid any conversation or action that might create tension.
I see. So you hold back on taking a big, risky step because it might make the group feel anxious or awkward.
You don't want to be the nail that sticks out.
Mm.
Precisely. It puts harmony over progress.
Mhm.
And then there's another concept it dives into, utang na loob.
The debt of gratitude.
Yeah, but it's much deeper than just saying thank you. It's this profound internal debt you feel towards your parents, your mentors, your leaders, anyone who's helped you. It creates incredible loyalty.
Which, again, sounds like a virtue. We complain all the time that society is too disloyal.
We do. But the source argues this kind of loyalty can anchor you to a place or a role long after your season there is over. You might feel called to move, to start something new.
But you stay because you feel like you owe it to them.
So leaving feels like a betrayal. You prioritize the debt to your past over the call to your future. And that's just a recipe for stagnation.
Which brings us to a metaphor the source really challenges. And I'll admit this one was tough for me because I use this language all the time. The metaphor of church as family. I've always heard that as a good thing. Welcome home, we're a family here. But the source sees a danger in that.
Well, it's not that the metaphor is wrong. It's just incomplete. Of course a church should feel like a family. We all need that sense of belonging, of refuge. But what's the primary instinct of a biological family?
To protect its own, to keep the kids safe.
Exactly. Families protect the inside from the outside. So the source argues that when a missional community sees itself only as a family, it inevitably turns inward. It becomes a fortress.
It becomes about us taking care of us.
And the budget reflects that. The calendar reflects that. The goal becomes staying together rather than being sent out. And you end up with what the text calls proximity-centered discipleship.
Which means
We only really care for people within arm's reach. People who look like us, talk like us, vote like us.
because it's comfortable, it's easy.
But the real mission is almost always across a boundary. Cultural, geographic, economic, a family that isn't also an army or a movement. Well, it just reinforces boundaries. It doesn't cross them.
So if we're chipping away at all these layers of comfort, relational harmony, family loyalty, we have to talk about security itself. Because if I'm being honest, we all crave security. That's why most of us go to work every day.
And that's where the source really challenges our modern culture, both inside and outside the church. It argues we have moralized stability.
Moralized it? What do you mean?
We've made security a moral good. If you have a stable job, a 401k, a nice house, we assume you are blessed. We see you as doing life the right way.
And if your life is chaotic or you're taking risks, people assume you must be irresponsible.
Right. But the text contrasts this with what it calls a theology of disruption.
I have to say I hate that phrase. My blood pressure goes up just hearing it. I want a theology of peace and quiet.
Don't we all? But the source points out that the biblical story, and really the story of most great movements, is almost entirely driven by disruption. Look at the case studies. Abraham.
The father of the faith.
His story didn't begin with a map or a clear destination. It began with one command: leave. Leave your country, your people, your father's household. He had to leave that deep utang na loob to step into his purpose.
So he had to embrace total insecurity to find the mission.
And then there's the early church in the book of Acts, chapter 8. This is a point the text makes that really hit me. We think the church expanded because they had this brilliant strategy.
A whiteboard session and a 5-year global expansion plan.
Q3 goals. Reach Antioch. Exactly. But the source reminds us they didn't leave Jerusalem because they wanted to. They left because they were forced to. Persecution broke out.
It became too dangerous to stay.
They scattered. So the growth, the mission, it was a byproduct of the discomfort.
The discomfort was the engine.
Yes. If they'd stayed comfortable in Jerusalem, the whole movement might have died right there. And this is a quote from the text that just hit it hard. Stability is often where faith fossilizes. Movement is where it grows.
Faith fossilizes instability. Oof, that's a haunting image. You look like a rock, but you're dead inside. I want to pivot to a specific group the source spends a lot of time on, the next generation, the youth.
This is a critical part of the whole analysis. The text identifies this very specific missional gap for younger people.
And it seems like a paradox, doesn't it? Because we're told this is the most globally aware generation ever. They see injustice on their TikTok feeds every single day.
They're incredibly inspired. They go to the conferences. They buy the fair trade coffee. They feel all the right things. But the source points to this huge gap between that inspiration and actual participation.
So what's stopping them? If they have the passion, why aren't they going?
A couple of things. First, That same cultural pressure we talked about. Get a safe career, be a doctor, be an engineer. Secure your future. But second, and this is crucial, is a deep fear of inadequacy. The text quotes the prophet Jeremiah, "I am only a boy."
I'm too young. I don't know enough. Who am I to do this?
They feel they aren't ready. And because they are surrounded by models of safety, they lack what the source calls apostolic imagination.
Okay, that's a big term. Break that down for me.
Yeah.
Apostolic imagination.
Think of it this way. If you want to build a house, but you've only ever seen people live in caves, you can't even imagine what blueprints look like.
You don't know where to start.
Exactly. These young people see the what, they see the need, but they don't see the how. Everyone around them is just settling down, so they can't imagine a practical pathway to actually go and do the work without, ruining their lives.
So they just get stuck in the waiting room, waiting to be older, richer, ready.
And we all know ready is a myth.
Yeah.
If you wait until you feel fully ready to take a risk, you'll never, ever move.
Okay, so we've diagnosed the problem, and honestly, it's not looking great. We've got this theology of delay, cultural values holding us back, a fortress mentality.
It's a lot.
So let's pivot to the solution. Does the source just say we need to blow up our lives, sell our houses, and abandon all comfort?
Thankfully, no. That's the kind of binary thinking it wants us to avoid. The source isn't saying comfort is evil. It's saying comfort is a tool. The goal isn't to destroy it. It's to leverage it.
Reframe comfort. I like that. So how do we do that practically?
You start to see your stability not as a fortress to guard, but as a platform to launch from.
Okay, make that real for me. I've got a stable 9-to-5 job. How is that a platform?
Well, the fortress mindset says, I work this job to pay my mortgage and keep my life safe.
Right.
The platform mindset says, I work this job to fund innovation. My salary isn't just for my security, it's the logistics for the mission. My network at work is my mission field.
So the job becomes the engine room, not the final destination.
Precisely. Or take that family network we talked about.
Okay.
Instead of it being a chain that holds you back,
It's a safety net.
it becomes your safety net so that you can take bigger risks. If you try something and fail, they'll be there to catch you. That shouldn't make you safer. It should make you braver.
It's the shift from preservation, just keeping what we have, to participation, using what we have.
That's it.
The source also gets into how we train people for this. It talks about moving from events to formation. And it takes a bit of a shot at the classic short-term mission trip.
Yeah, the mission tourism model. 1 week, take some photos, paint a wall that didn't need painting, and come home feeling good about yourself.
We've all seen the Instagram posts.
The source argues we need to move from just exposure, which is all those trips really are,
Yeah.
to genuine apprenticeship, learning to actually live the mission. It really emphasizes vocational discernment.
Which brings us back to the job. It's asking, how can my actual skill set as an accountant or a designer or a teacher plug into this global work?
It's closing that gap between secular work and sacred mission. It's all mission if you have the imagination for it.
All right, let's get down to brass tacks. The listener's thinking, okay, I'm buying this. I feel the paralysis, but I'm still scared. How do we start without being reckless?
The source offers this really brilliant, manageable concept. It's called the one risk step.
Just one, I like that.
Just one. Don't quit your job tomorrow. Don't sell the house yet. Just take one small, intentional risk step.
Okay, like what?
Where one example is local cross-cultural engagement. You don't have to buy a plane ticket to find a different culture.
No, in almost every city, the nations are right there.
The source says, volunteer with a refugee community in your city. Go to a restaurant where you're the only one who looks like you. Mentor an international student. Just cross a boundary that's 5 minutes from your house.
That's often harder than flying across the ocean, to be honest.
It's more real. It breaks the bubble. Another example is virtual partnerships. Using Zoom or other platforms to mentor or partner with someone across the globe, the barrier isn't geography anymore. It's just willingness.
I really like the specific exercise the source suggests called fear mapping.
This is so powerful. If you're feeling stuck, you actually sit down with a piece of paper and you write down your fears. If I do this, what am I actually afraid will happen?
I'll lose money, my parents will be disappointed, I'll look foolish if I fail.
All of it. Get it out of your head and onto the paper.
Yeah.
Because fear loves the dark. When you can see it in the light, you can interrogate it. You can ask, is this fear based on reality or is it just cultural conditioning?
It's like dragging the monster out from under the bed and realizing it's just a pile of laundry.
Or at least seeing that the monster is way smaller than the mission. It helps you separate real danger from mere discomfort.
So as we wrap up, I'm thinking about the journey this deep dive has taken us on. We started with comfort as this warm, fuzzy blanket we all want,
Hmm.
but we've realized that if you wrap yourself up too tight in that blanket, it becomes a straitjacket.
It limits your movement, and the source is crystal clear. A life of purpose is a life of movement. It's about being sent.
No matter where you are, you could be in Manila, you could be in New York, the call is to be sent, not just settled.
And that reframes everything. Your job, your home, your bank account. They're not just for you anymore. They are the logistics for your mission.
I want to leave everyone listening with the final, really provocative question the source material poses. It's a question that completely inverts how we usually think about risk.
Yeah, we always ask, what's the risk of going? What if I fail? We calculate the potential loss of income, safety, reputation.
We have spreadsheets for the risk of action.
But the source flips the entire calculator. It asks, what if the greatest risk isn't stepping out in faith?
But staying exactly where you are.
That is the haunting question.
It really is.
And then it follows it up. What might be lost generationally if comfort remains unchallenged?
We only ever count the cost of doing something. We almost never count the cost of doing nothing.
And the source implies that the cost of the status quo of staying in the bunker is actually far, far higher. You lose the very thing you were made for.
That is definitely something to chew on for the rest of the week. Thank you for walking us through that. It was challenging in the best way.
My pleasure. A lot to think about.
Until next time, keep asking the hard questions. And maybe, don't be afraid to take that one risk step.